They say betrayal cuts deepest when it comes from someone who once vowed to love you, and mine came gift-wrapped in a manila envelope on my birthday. I had just turned 34 that afternoon. My wife, Delilah, had been acting unusually chipper the entire week before, sneaking off with her phone, whispering with her sister, smiling to herself like she had the world's most delightful secret. We'd been married for 6 years, and while things between us weren't exactly perfect lately, I foolishly took her behavior as a good sign. Maybe I thought she was planning something sweet. A party, perhaps. A getaway. Something to rekindle the spark we'd been quietly losing. So when she told me to meet her at her parents' house for a birthday surprise, I shoved my doubts aside and went along with it. Her parents had never liked me. They thought I was beneath her. Her father, Conrad, once told me during a Christmas dinner that Delilah was supposed to marry up, not sideways. Her mother, Elaine, treated me like a phase Delilah would grow out of. I'd endured years of passive-aggressive comments, snide glances, and forced smiles for the sake of my marriage. I should have known that walking into their sprawling, sterile suburban home wouldn't lead to anything good. The moment I stepped inside, I knew something was wrong. The living room was packed. Her parents, her sister Rachel, a few smug cousins, even one of her college friends I hadn't seen in years, all holding champagne glasses, all too quiet. Delilah stood in the center, wearing a cream-colored dress and that same fake smile she'd perfected for Instagram photos. My heart sank. I opened my mouth to ask what was going on, but she beat me to it. "Tate," she said sweetly, "we have a very special birthday gift for you." Then, like it was nothing, she pulled out a thick manila envelope and handed it to me with both hands. "Surprise," she said, her voice syrupy and cruel. "I'm leaving you for someone who isn't such a disappointment." Her father chuckled. "About time," he muttered. "We never thought she'd actually go through with marrying someone so average." I didn't say a word. I couldn't. I just stared at her, at the envelope, at the champagne flutes filled and ready like they were toasting a job promotion, not the death of a marriage. Delilah pressed the papers into my chest. "All you have to do is sign." The silence that followed was thick and expectant. I think they were waiting for me to cry, to break, to plead. But instead, I took the envelope, walked over to the nearest table, and calmly asked for a pen. Conrad, never one to pass up the chance to gloat, handed me his gold-plated Mont Blanc. I signed everything without reading a word. No one moved. No one spoke. The only sound was the scratch of ink on paper and the distant hiss of a champagne bottle popping. When I was done, I closed the folder, handed the pen back, and looked Delilah in the eye. "Thanks," I said. "Best birthday gift I've ever received." Then I walked out. No door slam, no dramatic exit, just silence and stunned faces behind me. I didn't drive home. I didn't even know where I was going. I ended up in a quiet dive bar on the east side of town, staring into a glass of whiskey, while text after text from Delilah lit up my phone. But something in me had shifted. I wasn't sad. I wasn't broken. The whiskey was cheap, the bar dimly lit, and for the first time in years, I felt still. I stared down into the glass like it held some kind of answer. Delilah's text kept coming, at first smug, then confused, then angry. "Why didn't you say anything? You're really not going to fight for us? You're just proving my point." I didn't answer any of them. Instead, I opened my notes app and started typing. Not a message, not a plan, just a list. Names, incidents, patterns. Every moment over the past 6 years when I ignored the warning signs. Every time I laughed off her family's contempt. Every time I told myself I just needed to be more successful, more impressive, more something. That night, I made 3 decisions. First, I called my old friend Jonah. We'd gone to college together. He was now one of the sharpest divorce attorneys in the city. The kind who didn't just play defense, he built cases like he was constructing cathedrals. I told him everything. He didn't gasp, didn't say "I'm sorry," just said, "Send me the paperwork, we'll take it from here." Second, I started backing up everything to the cloud. Delilah and I had shared a few accounts, mostly for convenience. Bad move on her part. I found weeks' worth of messages between her and a man named Bryce, her coworker. Flirty messages, hotel receipts, photos, screenshots of her mocking me. My heart didn't sink, it didn't race, it just hardened. Third, I moved out the very next day. While she and her family were busy reposting inspirational quotes about cutting off dead weight, I rented a furnished loft downtown. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. I left our apartment just as I found it, neat, untouched, and lifeless. I took my important documents, my tools, the custom guitar she never let me display, and the cast iron skillet I bought with my first bonus. The rest, she could keep. I didn't want reminders of a life that never felt like mine. The fallout was immediate. Delilah called me 6 times that morning, and when I didn't answer, she called Jonah's office. His assistant, bless her, calmly informed her that all communication would now go through legal channels. That's when the emails started. She accused me of abandonment, claimed emotional cruelty, said I was manipulating her family. But Jonah had already submitted a counterclaim, complete with evidence of infidelity, financial misconduct, and what he delicately referred to as public defamation. The birthday stunt? He labeled it as premeditated humiliation, backed by guest testimonies and social media posts. Turns out one of her cousin's friends had posted the whole thing on TikTok, captioned, "When your cousin throws the coldest divorce party ever." It went viral. People thought it was fake. Delilah had no idea that her performance art had documented the exact moment her case fell apart. The best part? I didn't have to lift a finger. I wasn't plotting revenge, I was preparing for peace. While she spiraled, I started going to the gym again. I cooked for myself. I turned my phone on silent during meals. I reached out to friends I'd neglected. Some told me they'd never liked Delilah. Others said they were waiting for me to realize I deserved better. The pain came in waves but never stayed long. Not like I expected. Because the more distance I put between myself and that house, that woman, that life, I could finally breathe. 1 week after the party, I stood on the rooftop of my new building, watching the city lights flicker like stars, and I realized something simple, powerful, and terrifying. I wasn't grieving the loss of my marriage. I was grieving the version of myself that thought it was worth saving. 3 months. That's how long it took for the silence to finally settle into something that felt like peace. I had expected heartbreak, late-night breakdowns, maybe even a few calls to friends I hadn't spoken to in years just to hear a familiar voice. But instead, I found rhythm, I found quiet, and more importantly, I found myself. Every morning started the same. Wake up in my loft, brew a cup of black coffee, no sugar, no cream, just strong and honest, like the life I was rebuilding. I'd read for a bit, then head to the gym. It was part therapy, part distraction, but mostly it was my way of reclaiming control. My body had started changing. Not drastically, but enough. Enough to look in the mirror and not see someone defeated. Enough to feel like I was standing taller, grounded, present. Delilah, meanwhile, was unraveling. I never responded to her messages. Not the ones filled with venom, not the ones dripping with regret, and certainly not the ones that arrived at 2 a.m., long and rambling, asking if we could just talk. She went from broadcasting curated snapshots of her new life to radio silence. Her Instagram, once a gallery of champagne brunches and designer handbags, was now dormant. Then I got a call from Annalise, Delilah's younger sister, the only one in that entire family who ever treated me like a human being. "I'm sorry to call you, but you should probably know what's going on," she said. I listened quietly as she told me that Bryce, Delilah's grand new love, had been caught leaking company secrets. Apparently, he'd charmed his way not just into her bed, but into the upper ranks of her father's firm, where he used his position to funnel information to competitors. By the time Bronson found out, the damage was done, contracts lost, investors walking. The family's pristine name was in shambles. And Delilah? Fired. Cut off. No more trust fund. No more family job. No more luxury apartment. "She's been staying with friends," Annalise whispered, "but she's running out of options." I thanked her and hung up. I didn't feel joy. I didn't feel sorry either. What I felt was clarity. Life has a funny way of balancing the scales. That weekend, I did something I hadn't done in years. I opened the folder on my laptop titled Dreams. Inside were sketches, notes, and mock-ups for a furniture design business I'd shelved long ago. Delilah used to roll her eyes whenever I talked about it. "You're not a craftsman, Todd. You're not your grandfather," she once said, laughing over her mimosa. But I was. I am. I rented a small workshop space not far from the loft. Nothing fancy, just a corner unit with decent light, enough room for tools, and a door I could lock behind me. I refinished my first piece, a vintage oak coffee table I found on Craigslist. Posted it online. It sold in 3 days, $27 profit after materials. I grinned like I'd just won the lottery. And slowly I began to build something. Something real. Something mine. By month's end, I had 3 regular clients, a routine that didn't revolve around someone else's moods, and a mind that no longer raced with what-ifs. Delilah was no longer the center of my story. I was. And while I didn't know exactly where the road ahead would take me, I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going back. Not to her. Not to that life. Not to the version of myself who mistook endurance for love. Sometimes the best thing someone can give you is the freedom to start over, even if they wrap it in betrayal and serve it on your birthday. By the 4th month, the dust had truly settled, but Delilah hadn't. I was in my workshop on a rainy Thursday afternoon, sanding down an old walnut dresser when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I ignored it. It buzzed again. Then again. Then a text. "Please, Todd, I just need 5 minutes. I'm outside." Outside? I walked to the front of the shop and peeked through the window. There she was. Same white Audi, though it looked less like a status symbol now and more like a shelter. The back seat was packed with clothes, a few handbags, a crumpled blanket. Delilah sat behind the wheel, shoulders hunched, staring straight ahead like she didn't know what to do next. I could have turned off the lights and let her sit there. God knows she'd done worse to me. But I didn't. I stepped outside into the rain and tapped on her window. She jumped, rolled it down, eyes wide and tired. "Hi," she croaked. Her voice sounded small, dry, like she hadn't used it much in days. "You shouldn't be here," I said flatly. "I didn't know where else to go," she whispered. "I tried everyone. No one's calling me back." I crossed my arms. "So now I'm the emergency contact?" She winced but didn't deny it. "Please, I just need somewhere to sleep, just for tonight." I let out a long breath, jaw clenched. I wanted to say no. I wanted to tell her to sleep in the car she used to brag about, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. "One night, on the couch. That's it," I said. Her eyes filled with tears and she nodded. "Thank you." Inside, she barely looked like the woman I remembered. Her once perfectly styled hair was pulled into a limp ponytail. Designer clothes replaced by old sweatpants and a hoodie that probably wasn't even hers. She looked human and exhausted. She sat on the couch and immediately curled into herself like she wanted to disappear. I handed her a blanket and went back to my workroom without another word. That night, while I was cleaning up, I heard soft crying. Not the dramatic kind she used to perform whenever she wanted attention, but the quiet kind. The kind that leaked out when no one was around to see it. The next morning, I found her in the kitchen, holding a mug of coffee with both hands like it was the only warm thing in her life. "I didn't sleep much," she said. "I'm not surprised." We ate in silence. Then she told me everything. Ronan had dumped her the minute her father's company cut ties with him. Turned out he was using her to gain access to sensitive information. Delilah, in her desperation to keep him, had doctored reports and forwarded client intel, things she couldn't legally defend. When the truth came out, Bronson disowned her. "You embarrassed the family," he'd said. "You're on your own now." The irony was rich. The same man who'd toasted to my divorce, now refusing to lift a finger for his own daughter. "I was stupid," she said. "You tried so hard, and I treated you like you were lucky to have me." "You did," I replied. "But I don't need an apology. I needed respect. Years ago." She looked up, eyes hollow. "I don't want anything from you. I swear, I just didn't know where else to go." I believed her. That was the saddest part. She really didn't have anyone. She'd burned every bridge until there was only one left, and I was standing at the edge, wondering if I should just watch her fall. But I didn't. I let her stay 2 more nights. No promises, no conversations about the past. Just a roof. Just decency. Because I was no longer the man she left on his birthday. I had nothing to prove to her or anyone else. And that felt better than revenge ever could. The morning she left for good was quiet. I'd gotten up early as usual, fed Max, who now had a habit of curling up by the front door, always ready for a walk, and brewed my coffee. Delilah was still on the couch, buried beneath the throw blanket, her face slack with the kind of deep sleep that only comes after weeks of exhaustion. Part of me hoped she'd slip out without a word. Another part braced for some last desperate plea. What I wasn't expecting was the silence that greeted me when I returned from my morning walk. The couch was neatly folded, the blanket folded with care. On the coffee table sat a note. Not a dramatic letter, not a speech. Just 6 simple words, scribbled in her handwriting. "I'm sorry, I'll figure it out." There was no forwarding address, no call later in the day, just an absence. And strangely, it didn't feel like a victory. It felt like closure. It was a strange feeling, watching someone who'd once celebrated your pain quietly vanish from your life. No door slammed, no final insult hurled over her shoulder, just gone. That afternoon, I got a call from Bronson. I didn't pick up at first. Let it ring, watched it buzz itself to voicemail. But then curiosity got the better of me. I played the message on speaker while sanding a piece of reclaimed oak. His voice was barely recognizable, deflated, rattled. "Todd, this is Bronson. I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from, but things have taken a turn. I heard Delilah showed up at your place. I want to make sure she's okay." He paused, then added, "We could use someone like you, Todd. Someone steady, level-headed. There's a position opening up on our restructuring team. Let's talk." I laughed out loud. It was the first genuine laugh I'd had in weeks. The man who mocked me for my background, who toasted my humiliation with champagne, was now offering me a seat at the very table he once used to look down on me. I didn't call back. Instead, I sent the voicemail to Mia. Yes, that Mia. The brilliant consultant I'd been quietly seeing for the past 2 months. She listened to it and texted me one word: poetic. Later that week, I helped her prep for a proposal meeting with one of her new clients. Ironically, a competitor of Bronson's firm. As I watched her lay out her pitch, confident and composed, I couldn't help but smile. Delilah's world had fallen apart the second she let her pride outweigh her character. Mine had come together when I stopped letting other people define my worth. A few nights later, I posted a photo to my furniture page. It was a shot of a restored vintage writing desk, bathed in golden afternoon light. In the caption, I wrote, "Sometimes you don't need revenge, you just need peace and good wood." The post blew up. People who'd followed my story from the beginning started commenting, cheering me on. Some shared their own stories of heartbreak and survival. Others just said thank you. I realized then that my life wasn't just about bouncing back. It was about building something better, stronger, wiser. Delilah never reached out again. No late-night knocks, no teary voicemails. Just a fading chapter in a book I no longer felt the need to reread. These days, I wake up early. I walk max. I sip my coffee slowly. I work with my hands, crafting something real out of broken pieces. And every once in a while, I think back to that birthday. The champagne, the smug laughter. The way she said, "I'm leaving you for someone who isn't a disappointment." And I smile. Because in the end, I wasn't the disappointment. I was the beginning.